Hey everyone, and welcome back. This is Mr. and Mrs. Gamer play Vlad the Impaler, and you are watching Chapter 6. I think this might be the last chapter, seeing as we ran out of turns in the last video. But yet again, we start with a rather gruesome image. So let's get into the story and see why this is here. Sultan Mehmed II is just sitting down into the water of the palace's grand bath when one of the maidens attending him loops a length of silver cord around his throat. You leap from behind the tapestry where you are hiding and slice the assassin's head off in one stroke. The Sultan gasps for air as he splashes away, the other royal bathers screaming in horror as the deadly woman's body pitches forward, fountaining blood into the pristine water. "What is the meaning of all this?" the Sultan cries. You lean over and pick up the woman's head, turning it around to show a tattoo on the back of her neck. They call her Ismerju. It means dragon in Romanian. The Sultan's face turns from red to white as he sees the symbol of the many-headed dragon on her neck. He then fishes the assassin's cord out of the water to find a silver dragon cross dangling from the end of it. "The Order of the Dragon." "Yes, Your Majesty," you reply. "They are the force behind the bloodshed in Istanbul. I have learnt through my investigation that they have been wagering a bloody inquisition across your city, torturing and killing anyone they perceive to be evil, and in doing so, they have descended into a darkness greater than that which they sought to purge." The Sultan looks up at you. The Order of the Dragon does not move without the command of their secret master. You nod, placing the severed head onto a silver plate, and whoever that master is would have all the weight of all this bloodshed on his hands. The Sultan gazes up at you. "Indeed, becoming the greatest of all monsters, and I know the name of that man, for I have faced him before. He is Vlad Dracul, Prince of Wallachia, and is known as the Impaler," you reply, finishing the Sultan's sentence. "You know of him?" You nod sadly. "He is the one who asked me to come here, searching for a great evil, the same as his knights." The Sultan's Janissary guards finally swarm the room, and a dozen spears are pointed in your direction. "Hold!" shouts Sultan Mehmed. "This is a hero. More than that, a hero with one last task to complete." The Sultan turns back to you. "For unless I miss my guess, you are the type of person who finishes what they begin." It is with a heavy head that you nod, because he is right. The Sultan leaves the room for a moment, stepping into the shadow. He returns, carrying an item that he holds with great esteem, and presents it to you. "A true hero is talented in many fields," the Sultan states. "Take this and allow its power to guide you." This scimitar is the language of the world and fire, the key to humanity. No roots can go as far back or be as deep as those that connect us to the fire contained in this blade. So it adds 1 health, 2 dexterity and 1 magic to my stats. Journey to the castle. You leave behind a city still in the grip of darkness. Despite all you have done on its streets and in its shadowy corners, there is only one way to truly save it. Your trek across Ottoman country is arduous. By day, bandits hound you as if having specifically been given your name. At night, things crawl out of the shadows with teeth like knives, only to be kept at bay by the circles you draw upon the ground around you. It is harrowing, and you sleep little, but as you climb through the mountainous forests of Transylvania, you at last find the road you once climbed as a friend. And even in the twisting twilight landscape, there are still a few flowers to be seen along the road. You pick the few that catch the last light of the waning sun, but as you round the final bend, Vlad's castle comes into view. You once stayed there as a welcome friend. Now it seems to stare at you in hunger, as if the very stones were luring you into the gaping mouth of the inner gates. The portcullis crashes down behind you, and as you enter the dead walls, you know for a fact that there is now only one way you'll ever leave Castle Dracula, and death is not it. Ooh. Okay, so I guess we're inside his castle at the minute. Seeing as this is the only option, let's go. The front gates to the castle swing wide, as if operated by phantoms. You know that to show any fear would be fatal, so you square your jaw, draw your weapons, and step across the threshold. The main antechamber is dark, but just as your eyes are beginning to adjust, 100 candles flare to life. Cobwebs crisscross the high ceiling, but you can still make out the mural painted there. A sweeping depiction of Vlad as a younger man, leading his force of the Wallachian soldiers against the vast armies of the Sultan. You remember how much he looked like a saviour in that painting, when sunlight would fill the dome. But now, by flickering candlelight, he appears more like a horseman of the apocalypse. "Who goes there?" comes a voice from the balcony above you. You look up to find a rugged-looking man with a full beard and dark eyes staring down at you. "I've come to see Prince Vlad," you say. "I'm a friend, and I suspect he's been expecting me." The man's mouth twists up into a smile. He has been expecting you. To die! The man then leaps over the railing, but when he hits the floor, it's on all fours and in the shape of an enormous werewolf. With a frightening growl, he charges at you. Attack or dodge? I'm gonna dodge. Knowing full well that, without silver, you don't stand a chance against this beast, you decide on a different tactic. You run directly towards the charging werewolf, readying to swing. Then, just as it leaps into the air, you drop to the floor, sliding under it. The wolf sails over you, landing unharmed on the other side of the room. It spins to come back at you, but you have already regained your feet and are running through the archway that leads deeper into the castle. As you run through, however, you drop a handful of the flowers that you picked on your way up the road. The werewolf slides to an enraged stop right in front of the flowers. He begins to bark madly. He cannot cross because the flowers are wolfsbane. Now you are free to plunge deeper into the castle, while he will have to circle around by other routes to try and catch up to you. By that time, you fully intend on finding something silver. You turn away from the pacing beast and descend into the lower halls. Agility and magic. I don't really have much of them at the minute, so that's good. The Black Chapel. Mwah, sounds very ominous. As you enter the castle chapel, you are surprised to see just how greatly it has fallen into disrepair. It wasn't more than 10 years ago that you attended Mass in this very place, and yet it looks as though centuries have passed. The pews have split and warped. The altar has overgrown with lichen. The crucifix has been shattered. Dust and ash cover everything. Most disturbingly, however, it is that the tombs of the other long-dead Draculs seem to have been recently opened. You cross the chapel past the baptismal font where Vlad himself was baptized as a child, and you wonder just how this great man could have fallen so far. That's when you realize there is a woman standing against the far wall. You hadn't noticed her when you entered because her dress is grey and her face is covered with the same ash as the rest of the chapel. She stares at you with unblinking eyes. So you could either speak to her or attack with a blow to the heart. Well, the werewolf kind of attacked me straight away, as soon as it saw me. So, I think if this woman wanted to attack me, she probably would have done already. So, I'll speak to her before I decide to, kill her. "What are you doing down here?" you ask. Her voice is little more than a whisper when she replies, "I was married here." You take a step toward her. "You're one of the Draculs," you say. She slowly shakes her head, no. "Are you dead?" you ask. She blinks for the first time. Single tears run down either side of her face, washing away ribbons of ash. Then she nods. You take a step closer. "Did he kill you?" She shakes her head, no. "Are you one of his guardians?" you ask. She closes her eyes. Then she slowly nods. Her voice is even quieter when she replies, "But I have failed." "How have you failed?" you ask, mere feet away from her. Fresh tears run down her cheeks as she says, "Because I was guarding his conscience." That stops you in your tracks. "What happened to him?" you ask. Her eyes slowly open as she looks at you from the deep shadows of her face. "He sought to do good deeds. He intended for the Knights of the Dragon to help the innocent, to combat evil, but they have gone astray, persecuting everyone they come across. And the blood on their hands has twisted him, opened his heart to the influence of shadow and night, and he no longer listens to me, only the howling of wolves and the mewing of his cold woman. He is lost." Her eyes wander down to your weapon. Now, there is but one last thing which can affect his heart. She reaches a filthy finger to touch your weapon. There is a sudden flash of light, blinding you. You step back, rubbing your eyes. When the effects of the flash finally subside, you are alone again in the chapel. Your weapon, however, now seems different, almost as if it were shinier, luminescent in the black chapel. You remember the werewolf and press on, up the back staircase, climbing into the heights of the castle. Oh, no stats gained, not even for my weapon, which seems to be upgraded. The East Parlour. At the top of the stairs you find yourself in a long corridor, leading towards a pair of heavy oak doors. You gather your courage and move forward, past the open rooms along the side of the passage. But then one catches your notice. Against your better judgment, you look inside. It is a salon-type parlour, as dark and dusty as everything else you've seen in the castle so far. But through the moth-eaten drapes along the far wall, you can make out a painting. On the canvas, a regal couple face each other, holding hands. The taller of the two figures is a young Vlad, dressed in an opulent and regal uniform, with a ruby-encrusted sword sheathed on his hip. Staring into his eyes, it is a beautiful Transylvanian woman in a royal dress of gold and blue. Your jaw drops. There can be no mistake. You just saw that woman in the chapel downstairs. Vlad's wife? He was married when he was younger? That's when you feel the slither of chilly fingers across the back of your neck. You spin around, raising your weapon, and yet you find no horrible monster, but three beautiful women in flowing gowns, otherworldly in the moonlight seeping in from the windows. You can either attack them, or give them the flowers you picked on your way up to the mountain. Well, I think it's pretty obvious who these women are. They're the brides of Dracula. But I don't like attacking people when they don't provoke me. So maybe the flowers had an effect on the werewolf. So maybe the flowers will have an effect on them. You know, just to make sure they actually are undead vampire scum. As the smiling, shapely forms of the three women close in on you, you pull out the wild roses from your pocket. At the mere sight of the flowers, the three women leap back in terror, their faces twisting into frightening shapes, full of sharp teeth and piercing red eyes. So, you say, the wild rose does repel the restless dead. The three of them scream curses in Romanian, all of which you understand. Who is that woman in the painting, you demand? Dracul's first wife, hisses the blonde one of the three. He's never been able to let go of her. Her purity, her piety. Is that why I saw her in the chapel, you ask? The three glance at you in brief surprise before shielding their eyes from the mounting flowers again. One of the brunettes hisses. Even from beyond the veil of shadows, she tries to stay his hand, tries to draw him back to the light, insufferable, even in death. You've heard all you care to hear from these sisters of darkness, and swing your weapon in a mighty arc, chopping all three of their heads from their shoulders. Blood fountains in wild arcs across the room as their bodies collapse to the floor. You drop a rose on each of their corpses and walk out, their heads still wobbling around in the hall outside. There is only one task left to perform, and you turn your gaze towards the imposing doors at the end of the hall. +1 magic and +1 intelligence. Good. The throne room. Could this be the end of the story? The boss battle with Dracula? Let's see. Covered in the blood of the vampire women, you kick open the heavy doors and walk inside the audience hall of the castle. 3 long pikes with sharpened spear points stand in a row along the far wall. Behind them hangs a banner with the symbol of the Knights of the Order of the Dragon. Sitting at the desk in front of them is a man with long dark hair. He looks up from the writing as you enter. You recognise the face all too clearly. It's him, Vlad the Impaler. You should not have come here, my friend, he says, setting down his writing quill. You step forward, replying, and you should not have sent me to Istanbul if the darkness I was meant to find was actually you. Vlad stands up from his chair, looking every bit the man you remember from better days. He says, I had suspected that a great evil was rising, but my knights, no matter how many heathens they killed, no matter how many witches they flayed, no matter how many wicked men Ismail assassinated, they could not find the source of their evil. So I sent you, the best investigator of the supernatural I have ever known, because I knew that if you ever came through those doors, it would confirm what I had grown to suspect, that I had become that great evil. He releases the heavy cape from his strong shoulders to fall to the floor. And tonight you have proven me right. You watch as Vlad's skin cracks and splits, breaking open and sloughing off as if a serpent was shedding its outer layer. Grey flesh, muscular and terrible, emerges from beneath. Long black talons end at his fingertips. Symbols of some dead language cover his torso. His face peels away to reveal demonic eyes and saber-like fangs as bat-like ears extend out from the sides of his head, and from his back sprout 4 membranous wings, which flex for the first time. Look upon me, old friend, he says in a hellish voice, and know that you are my final test, the last barrier before my great, blood-hewn destiny. Uh-oh. Hit the heart. Hit the heart. You decide to dispense with a lengthy struggle and leap forward, aiming directly for Vlad's chest as he charges you. The two of you collide mid-air, but the angle was awkward and you didn't quite have the strength to pierce your dagger through to his heart. What's worse is that the two of you collapse to the floor, with Vlad on top of you. His claws rake and slash, tearing fountaining wounds across your torso. Oh shit, that was not a good option to pick. Not a good option to pick. Okay, I'll use my special weapon. You leap at the vampire, bringing all your martial skills to bear, as your blade cuts broad swathes across his hellish body. Dracula screams in both pain and surprise, his eyes widening as the blood that spews from his wounds. How is this possible? He snarls. You wonder the same thing yourself, then notice the slight glow from your weapon, the same glow that blinded you when the woman in the chapel touched it. With a roar of rage and a swipe of his cursed hand, an invisible magical force rips the blade from your hand and sends it hurtling into the wooden supports along the roof, where it splinters and sticks. Now, Dracula says, standing to his full bleeding height, we shall see what you can do without your enchanted toy. Uh-oh. Well, what am I supposed to do now? I've already tried to hit the heart. I've already used my special weapon. What? I guess I'll try this one, seeing as the stats for these are higher. You summon the awesome total of your strength and charge the vampire, shouting, "Ah, Father," as you swing and slice your way towards him. You are surprised when he catches your arm right before you can finish your attack. He looks down at you with a sharpened sneer and says, "Your impotent prayers fall on more deaf ears than mine." And with that he digs a clawed hand into your ribs and lifts you up by them. You scream in absolute pain as your feet leave the ground. Dracula laughs. Then he throws you across the room, slamming you into a stone wall, where you collapse to the floor, your blood spilling out everywhere. Seriously? Okay. The only thing left to do is hit him in the head. Or charm or offend him. Well, I'm not going to offend him because that's pretty stupid. So I guess in a last ditch attempt I'll try and hit his head. You know that to strike second is likely to not strike at all against so formidable an opponent. And you leap forward, swinging for the vampire's head. His mouth becomes unnaturally large and his neck swerves, serpent-like, dodging your blow, to bury his great fangs into your shoulder. You scream in agony at the pain and chill of his bite, and with a sharp twist of his head, he throws you across the room, colliding against a bookcase. Your shoulder hemorrhages blood from the large chunk that he's bitten out of it. I've died? Really? You have died at the hands of Vlad the Impaler. Yours is the first name on a long list of heroes to be murdered during his eternal campaign of blood and wickedness. Really, guys? Really? I picked all the options! The end has come, but there is more left to discover. Well, that's the end of that then. I'm so disappointed. I guess it matters which order you pick the things in the last battle. But how could I win? Anyway, if you guys enjoyed the story and you want me to do playthroughs as the other character, the explorer or the mage, I can do that. If you'd like me to keep playing until I eventually win, so you can see what happens after that ending, then I will do. Just give me a comment on the video. And I will see you guys in my next Let's Play. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye guys.